Welcome to the Healthy Positive Me podcast, where we connect you with health and wellness experts who offer the insights, inspiration, step-by-step processes and tools you need to live a balanced, positive, and healthy life. If you are ready to embark on a journey of transformation, you are in the right place. Hi, it's Agnes here. I'm a business process consultant who is really passionate about helping you discover people, resources, processes that can truly make a difference in your life. Today, I'm honored to introduce you to our guest, Sherisse Bisram, an inner power activation leader, empowering women to ignite their inner wilderness and embrace fire self-love. In this episode, we will discuss how healing your inner child can unlock the abundance you truly deserve. So let's dive in. You have, lady, an inspiring journey to share with us. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, hi. Oh, it's so lovely. Every time I have an introduction, I'm always overwhelmed. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I made it.
I love it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And I think, I guess really and truly, the reason why I do this work is obviously because of my own story of overcoming. And that really is, the thing that I don't want to say defines me or refines me, but it's a part of who I am and the makeup of who I am. So I think owning that is a massive thing. And that's all around everything that I do now. So the title Inner Power Activation Leader came from owning my inner power and using that spark to, ignite everything that I am and amplify it, because I think that when we're in, a state of trauma or survival mode, we're hiding, we're hiding our true self. So, when we can heal the parts of us that are wounded, and especially that inner child part, that journey, and we sever the ties of what no longer serves us, we can then flourish as a result of no longer being held back. So just to give an overview, because it's a very long story, I'm going to give you a nutshell of, my life really. So I grew up, born and raised in Kent, and it wasn't a versatile, diverse area at the time. It was, I was one of three people of color in my entire school. So growing up, faced a lot of racism. That was just the norm. I'd walk home from school and I'd get like old men shout racism out the window. I'm like, come on, get a life, And in that, I had two choices. One was to be victimized by it and feel like, I wasn't good enough and all the things. And don't get me wrong, I definitely felt that internally, but I was very aware of the fact that I didn't want anyone to keep repeating these cycles. I was aware that I was strong always my whole life. And so I felt like if I used my voice and said something, it stops the continuation of that cycle and hopefully gave that person something to think about and hopefully they didn't repeat again. I mean, that was out of my control, right? But I could at least try. And the reason I had such a I guess power within my own voice was because it was all I ever knew. I grew up in a volatile household. So, the only way we communicated was through arguments. And that was a result of one of my parents being an addict and the other one obviously having to work to support the family. So there was a big void in our household of no one was parenting. So, a lot of the time, me and my younger sister were on our own, and or in the care of the parent that wasn't conscious. So it was quite a lot of difficult moments. And I just remember, tying all that together, being about 6 years old and just realizing this wasn't going to be my life, and especially like when the arguments were happening, I put the music on so my sibling didn't hear the arguing. And I just sort of said in that moment to myself that I'll never let anyone treat me like that. And that was the start of my survival mode, sort of toxic masculinity journey, I'd say, because I did take that role on in my household. And, when you do, I guess, wear that armor and that badge of honor of being that person, the strong one, everyone just offloads all of their stuff onto you. And that was what was happening. But, no one asked me to be that role. I just took it upon myself. And then as a result of someone actually now carrying the weight of everything, I had everyone else's weight then that they were piling on top of me. But also within that story, I had so I was about 6 years old at the time when that started, and then obviously school progressed, life progressed, and then between the ages of 12 to 17 I had 11 members of my family just pass away back to back, and one of them was the parent that was an addict. So along my journey I've just had lots of hardships, and in that stage of going through so much funerals and all of the things, all of my family would be like, oh, be strong for your family, be strong for your family. So I took that literally. I was like, okay, I'll be even more strong now than I already am. But, you know, like a bit of a donkey and a packed mule, I couldn't carry the weight of it anymore. And it's that saying, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back. There were so many moments in my life where I can now identify them as suicidal episodes. But the reason I didn't go that far was because my family needed me. So it was like a blessing and a curse, really, to be in that situation, because there was a reason that I had to be here, you know. But you know, on the other side of this, I can really see now that I was perpetuating a lot of the bad luck that I had, because obviously I believed everything to be hard. And don't get me wrong, it was, right? But you know, financially, I struggled a lot, and I worked like 3 to 4 different jobs. I was also a professional dancer for 11 years. So being a person of color within that industry at the time where it wasn't that diverse, even down to being a curvier. I mean, I've never been a bigger person, but in the dance industry at the time, I was considered that. And so I got told one day that I needed to lose my curves in order to get more work. It was just, you know, those constant things that I was going through, even sexualization as a performer. You know, there's lots of different things. And just even, yeah, as I said, like my laptop got stolen, and you know, like my car was broke down, so the AA, the breakdown, knew me by name. You know, there's so many cycles that I was perpetuating as a result of living from a traumatized space. And when it got to the pandemic, I mean, you know, bearing in mind this is probably early 20s, I'm going through all of this heavy load. And then I kind of made a choice when I got to about 23, where I was like, you know what, I'm going to start to be more aware. And that was the start of my journey. But that was very scratching the surface. You know, that was just me thinking, right, maybe I'm going to start meditating. Maybe I'll get back into journaling, because it was something I did as a child. I'm going to get back into it again. But again, very surface level. But even just that surface level made a massive difference in my life. You know, start to think about the law of attraction a bit more. I started to manifest things a bit more, and I got some really great jobs. Like I was one of the dancers in the Marvel movie The Eternals, and you know, I did the Queen's Jubilee and things like that. And obviously that was after the pandemic, but really great jobs, traveled the world, did some great things, but it all felt quite empty. And I was wondering why that was. You know, I couldn't quite join the dots. And my plan my whole life was to move to LA. You know, I've been out there a few times to train as a dancer. I was like, I love it here. I want to be here. And so that 2020 April, I had the meetings with the attorney booked in. I had my flights and my accommodation, everything booked. And then obviously the pandemic hit. I couldn't get to LA. And I was like, oh, what do I do now? And I really had to have a few conversations with myself in that time about, who am I? Because what I realized was that that version of me that wanted to move to LA and have a life and a career as a dancer back there, she made that declaration to herself at 18. You know, like I was 10 years ago, that whole time frame, I was such a different version of myself, and just realized that dance actually wasn't fulfilling me anymore. But alongside that, having the break, because I'd worked 3 to 4 jobs a day for like, you know, 5 years, even 10 years, and realizing then that I hadn't actually allowed myself to feel. So for the first time in my life, I crumbled to the point where I felt like I couldn't pick myself back up again. And it was because I'd realized like all of the weight of my experiences, and, you know, the trauma I'd been through. And, you know, like when you open Pandora's box to even just feeling a little bit, like it started off with vulnerability because I dated a guy, and in that time, the pandemic, he was like, oh, I can't do this. And I was like a bit icked out by the fact that he was sensitive. I was like, ugh. And then, you know, one of my aunties, she just said to me, the reason you find that so much of an ick is because you've never been vulnerable in your life. And I was like, oh. So then I started to unlock Pandora's box, then realizing that, you know, I'd lived so heavily in toxic masculinity. And I really looked back and realized I hadn't cried for like 10 years in front of anyone, but I used to cry myself to sleep at night, but no one ever saw my vulnerability. I kept that very under wraps. So this is where the masculine energy came in. And, you know, everything about me, my whole identity crumbled to the ground. But from that space of, you know, the ashes of who you were, that's the resurrection space, right? That's where you can reignite who you are, you know, and you rise like a phoenix. That's where the saying comes from, right? And I think that what I realized in that time frame was my whole life was proving myself to people, you know, proving that I wasn't this wounded person or whatever, but I was really being the wounded warrior my whole life. So when I dropped that, I realized I'd been living in my ego and not in my, you know, soul-led space. And this work that I do now, obviously from doing my own healing journey in that lockdown, I created a journal that was the starting space from it, because off the back of creating that journal, I then developed workshops and, you know, a program off the back of that. And then now that program goes into schools and it's been delivered to women. And, you know, like, it's just funny how when we're in stillness, that's when our creativity flows. And what I know now is that that was me for the first time ever being in my feminine energy, because I was allowing myself to feel and to be without doing. And that just completely transformed my life. So in that first year of the lockdown, that was really the healing, the initiation of the healing space. Started doing blogs, then vlogs. And the more I was sharing what I was going through and my experiences, the more people that were like, oh my gosh, I never knew you went through all of that. Like, wow, thank you for sharing. And it just started this whole movement and the real shift in my audience, from everyone to see what I'd been living with my whole life. And I then realized that this was maybe the space I needed to be in, you know, like the whole, I've stopped proving myself now. I don't need to do that anymore. I could put dance to rest, or just do dance now for fun instead of trying to prove myself there as a career. And now I get to just be me. And that was such a beautiful full circle moment. And even down to in that time, I was thinking, right, what am I going to do? So I went back to university and did my master's online from home. And then, yeah, that just opened up different avenues for me, and just realizing that I've always been amazing with people. You know, that's been a talent of mine. It's just connecting with humans is just something that I'm great at. And it's because I never felt seen and heard growing up, never fit into a box. So my whole life, I've outwardly kind of created those spaces for other people because I knew what it felt like to feel other. And I think that's the most beautiful transition in all of this, is being able to do this now. So as a result of, you know, constantly practicing, you know, everything that I teach now, I then have this, you know, formula and pathway, you know, to take people out of the darkness and into the light, because I've done it. And, you know, I didn't just do it once, I've done it over and over again throughout these last 4 years. It's been a consistent journey of, you know, overcoming every single time, because this is the thing with healing, it's not linear, is it? You know, it's circular. So every time I've been met with the old demons that come back up again, I've had to, you know, face them. And what's really lovely now is they're no longer demons. You know, it's just, you know, if someone I say hello to on the way around, when Chiron's, you know, conjunct with a moon or something, I'm like, oh, there you are. Yeah, I remember you. How you doing? Take care. We're going to walk past you now, instead of stopping to have a chat and getting blocked at the runway, you know? So yeah, it's been a real journey of overcoming, I would say, resilience, but to a point where I realized I no longer have to fight or battle anymore, and I can put everything down and I can just move through life with ease. And that's been my real learnings from everything. And, you know, what I'd say to anyone that is going for a hard time is that it will pass, you know, but you have to make choices that align with that version of you, you know, like, how does the best case scenario feel? And allow yourself to feel that, because I didn't believe it could be easy my whole life. And now I do. My life has completely transformed, even down to I manifested a trip to LA this month, just out of, like, you know, the thin air. And I'm actually going to get a chance to now go out and deliver a workshop based around the work I do now. And it just feels such a beautiful synchronicity of, like, that full circle moment. And that's what I really feel like. And 2024 is really about that, you know, wrapping up the old cycles. And I feel like that is really the cherry on top of a cake that's taken me a long time to make. But it's, you know, the most beautiful cake I could ever dream of, you know.
Exactly, exactly. And what I love in your story is the awareness, right? Everything started. You could have gone like so many other people, right? You could have gone the other way, but you did not. There was this, I call it a survival instinct, right? In many of us lives, I think it kicked in a couple of times when you have the choice. And everything starts with the awareness, right? From that moment that you know that it is worth fighting for, and you are worth fighting for, and that everything starts with you. From that moment, right? It totally makes the shift in your mindset that, okay, if this is me, and this was obviously the layers and layers of parents and childhood traumas, right? But after that, I take responsibility for the things that I'm doing, right? From that moment, I have the power, right? And you claimed back your magic and you said it, I have the power to change this whole thing. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it.
absolutely. Thank you. And you know what's really wonderful about that as well, even another layer to that is realizing that, the fighting and everything was surviving so I could be a better support to my family and to be there for them. And I realized that in a lot of that, warrior instinct, I was people pleasing a lot. Like that was just my story, is that I felt like, oh, let me be amicable for other people, even though I probably was coming across quite aggressive because I wasn't processing any of my feelings and
Mm,
emotions. Therefore, I was snapping quite frequently. But what was really nice was realizing now, like in a healed space, that having boundaries means that you don't people please, which means that actually at the beginning of that journey, sometimes people are resistant to you because they don't like the fact that you're no longer that version. But what I know for sure is this healthy space looks like having these beautiful boundaries where I no longer have to people please, because I am not just surviving for myself, but I'm thriving for myself. And in turn, as a result of that beautiful energy that I now emulate, everyone else's life in my life has improved dramatically because they've watched my transformation. And then in turn, my light has spilled over into them and inspired them to make better choices too. And I'm not just saying that from a space of ego, I'm saying that from general awareness, observation, and feedback as well, and that's not clients, that's just people in my life, let
mm,
alone my client work. But I feel like it's important to note that, because I think when people see someone that's aggressive and angry, they think that they're a horrible person. But I was quite the opposite of that. you
mm.
know I was quite palatable for a lot of people, or tried to be. Whereas now I would say that people outside that I've had to let go of, they're probably looking back at me thinking, oh, who does she think she is? I know who I think I am now, and I'm going to take up that space.
Exactly, exactly. And who are the people you think you can help the most, or I would say quickest, easiest, right? It always depends. But are those people who recognizing already that they went through something similar that you've done? Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. So I work with women and girls, and I do that because I've only ever been a woman or a girl. And I think that there's a beautiful space and a knowing when you look and sound and feel like someone that is also in that position or been in that position. I think that, for me, what I know for sure is I never saw representation of someone that looked like me or someone that had a similar story. So it's really important that I'm here as a beacon of light for women and girls, to show them that this is what's possible, right? So I go into schools and I deliver my program to girls, but I work with one-to-one clients that are women. And now I could work with girls in that space, but I feel like there's an element of emotional maturity that comes from being a woman, and or someone that wants to gain that. And it is for the woman that has been through something. She's now no longer in it and identifies that something needs to change in her life. Maybe she feels stuck or lost or confused. Maybe she's, come out of being a full-time parent. Her child's now in secondary school. She's realizing, what do I do next? It could be the career woman that has put so much time and energy on building success, but she feels empty, and everything feels a bit grey, and she wants more vibrancy in her life, not realizing that she was people pleasing her whole life, being the good girl, that she didn't actually get to fulfill her life in a beautiful way. It's for these women that know that something happened in their life to make them the way they are now. They don't quite understand maybe what it is or how to get to the next step, but they're just aware that something doesn't quite feel right, and they know they deserve more.
Love it, love it. And I think even if listening to your story, right, there are so many angles, what I'm 100% sure people can connect to, right? It's like not even going through each step what you went through, but
No.
here a little, the addicted person, the parents who are not parenting, when you need to even, I don't know, divorced parents, right? Where the person needs to take on the responsibility of other children in the family, and so on and so forth. There are so many touch points where even one thing can really cause, I guess, issues in your life, but having all of this together and really you made the change. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. It's really a wonderful thing. And what I love as a business consultant, right? Creating that 4-step process that works, that you can actually transform people's life with. It's just, really living your magic and really living what you are called to do. I love it. I love it. So if you could introduce us to this 4-step process, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that could help people a lot.
Absolutely that. And I think what's really important as well there that just on what you just said, is that I believe that trauma is relative and it's a spectrum. So we've all experienced something. Some clients come to me and they say, "Oh, I haven't been through what you've been through, but this is what happened to me." But when you haven't been through it yourself, don't even look at that. Look at what you've been through, because that's shaped your life, so that's really important to say. But yeah, the 4-point like formula really is really simple for me. And I feel like I've said it in a way that makes it really easy. So the first step is for you to understand what you went through. So that's a really big thing. A lot of people don't understand what's happened to them in their life, and therefore they don't realize that, it's a result of, all of these things that have led them to become this version of them. So we join the dots. So we go back, we go through the childhood experiences, we understand why it happened, we accept it. We can't change it. There's nothing we can do about that now, but we accept that, okay, I understand that as a result of my parents' addiction, that overtook how they thought and how they felt, and they did the best they could with what they had and what they knew and what they went through in their own childhood experiences. That's me accepting that. Then the next step of that is releasing it. So that's step 3, and we can do that through somatic exercises, through mental releases, through physical releases, and through spirituality, which is one of my favorite processes. And I do that a lot through, taking my clients through meditation and, going into, their past life, well, not their past lives, but their life before them, their inner child work, and healing that space. We go back as an adult to heal ourselves as a child, create new ways of looking at things. So that's all about reframing and releasing everything there. And then from that space, you've created a lovely bed of soil that's fresh and ready for new seeds of intention. So that's where we start to rebuild. So we can start to, look at how we create a solid foundation of self-worth. My formula for self-love is self-respect plus self-acceptance. That's the rebuild part. So when we do that, we then start to build and develop self-love. And as a byproduct of that deep-rooted self-love, that's when the manifestations come in. That's when the achieving the goals happen, because your self-confidence is built through, a real solid structure instead of a glass house. A lot of confidence, coaches or people, which I'm not bashing, they're amazing, but a lot of it, because it doesn't go from the bottom up, it's just like a glass house, and then anything that kind of like a stone gets thrown at it, it all shatters. Whereas when you have this indestructible foundation, anything that comes your way, you just trust yourself 1,000% to know that, that's not me. I did a workshop literally yesterday, and I was saying to the ladies, it's like, when it comes to bullying, for example, when you can build up that's such a strong like bubble of protection of numbing yourself, anything someone says about you or to you, it's not you, right? So you just let that go. You're like, you know what, that's a projection of how you feel about you and not me. That's your insecurity, that's not mine. Whereas when we don't have that solid foundation and structure, anything anyone says about us, we just absorb, because we don't know how to like bat it away, right? So it's all about creating this home and this safety inside of ourselves. So then, anything, anywhere we go in the world, anything that we do, we know that we're safe because we have us, and it's that home inside of you. And I think there's this saying that I use a lot about inner standing. You inner stand yourself so much that then from that space, everything outside of you radiates and glows, because everything in your life, you're a projection of a projection of your inner world, right? So, there's so within, so that is exactly that. So when you create a home and safety inside of yourself, then you create that space for abundance and love and joy. And that's where that feminine energy gets to reside, because, the masculine almost helped you create this foundation. So then the feminine has space to flourish. And that's the beautiful game of manifestation, right? Taking that aligned action, which is the divine masculine too, which, yeah, it's just this incorporation of really working in harmony with yourself. And yeah, just having that deep-rooted awareness. I think that, you know, self-awareness is really key, and that really is the answer to everything.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And it is easy, or no, it is simple, but it's not easy, right?
Yes.
It is definitely a personalized journey, and I guess it's, as you mentioned, it's like we are going in circle but hopefully in a spiral, upward spiral, right? Where
Yeah.
we just realize that so many things can be resolved when we find something, right? So
Yeah.
I usually tell people, right, it's like I'm in the online business industry for 10 years now. The best self-development journey ever, right? It's like you are seeing your things over and over again until you solve it, and you're like, oh my God, yeah. And next time you come across something, then, oh, okay, we already worked on it. We just need to clear out another layer of this, another layer of this. And really your life opens up, doesn't it?
Oh,
It's like
100%. And that's exactly it. Like you just said there, you have to be constantly doing it. And it's not necessarily like a thing where you're actively doing, but that awareness of, you know, what's coming up for me now, like you said, and it's just sweeping away, right? It's just sweeping away those limiting beliefs or that old story that wants to repeat itself. And that's, you know, a lot of my work is all about reframing, you know, reprogramming the subconscious mind. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, the brain is malleable. I think people think, well, that's the way I've always been. No, you can absolutely adapt and evolve. And it's that neuroplasticity that allows us to be able to do that. So, you know, a lot of my work combines, you know, spiritual practices with scientific practices too. And I think that that's just a really lovely intersect of, you know, that's really what manifestation is as well, you know, that combination of science and spirituality. So I think that it helps everyone to understand then.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I start loving, right, about this industry. And that's why I feel so passionate about sharing these stories with others, because there is always a solution. There is always someone who went through that. And even those people who think like life coaching and meditations and these type of things are woo-woo, or I don't know, manifestation is magic in itself. We have more and more data, don't we, about
Mm.
all of these things, that they really do work. They have scientific data, they can measure the results and so on and so forth. So I really do love that you mentioned that, because it is so important that even people who don't believe in certain things have now the reference, and they can really look into, and we can integrate everything in our lives. Have you had clients where even you were like, oh my God, this was just magic, how quickly they got from A to B or A to Z?
Do you know what? I think that a lot of my client journeys I'm just blown away with just generally, you know, like it's quite a common thing. And I think because when they come to me, I don't think they realize the extent of what it is they've been through. I think they know that it's something that's a little bit difficult, but they don't always put the two and two together. So when I'm able to just show them, oh, like, you know, for example, one of my clients, she didn't realize why she kept self-sabotaging. She would have these really great opportunities, and then something would happen and she would start to self-sabotage. So I went back with her and we walked through that journey, and I realized that you know, she was an athlete, and her limiting beliefs were actually her athlete, that her previous athlete coach, you know, whatever her sport was, the coach was so hard on her and physically and mentally abused her,
Mm.
that her self-sabotaging thoughts as an adult came from that coach. So when we identified that, and then again, her mum backed up the coach and not hers. So she had like a wounded feminine energy space. So when we were able to work through that, now she's been able to like launch her own film. She's been all over TV. She's like done all these really amazing things. She got married this year. You know, there's been some really beautiful things in her journey. And even another client of mine, you know, nothing necessarily major had happened in her life per se, but we were very aware of the fact that she never felt seen and heard growing up. you know, she was the only girl out of like a family of boys, and her mum wasn't present or in her feminine. So she grew up in a very masculine energy way. So a lot of our work together was similar to my own journey of coming out of the masculine and into the feminine. And then, you know, we've worked together for a few months now. And she said to me the other day that her husband opened up to her about how he was feeling. And he's never done that. They both had military backgrounds. So he, for the first time ever, had opened up. And she said that their relationship has been the best it's ever been as a result of her being open and doing this work. So she was like, you know, every element of my life has improved. My friendships, my relationships, you know, just how I feel about myself in general has actually absolutely transformed. And then another client of mine, we worked together right at the beginning of when I started doing this work, and she was my first person that joined my program. All of the goals that she set for herself in a year's time, she achieved them this year, and she was out of my energy. And it's only because I've got her on social media, I was like, oh my God, you're doing the thing. And she was like, yeah, it's all of the things that you said to me. It was all the things you helped me with. Like, she was like, you don't realize how much that I still do the practices you set for me now every single day. And, you know, another client literally messaged me last night and said to me, I'm still doing my affirmations that we worked through. So it's so lovely. And I did that workshop yesterday, and just having some of the feedback come through, like so many of the women were like, I needed to hear that today. It's completely transformed how I'm looking at everything. You know, my life is going to be so different as a result of this. And it will be, you know, like I definitely have that way that what I'm saying, you know, resonates deeply. I think there's something about that soul connection, you know. And I think, you know, with life in general, you hear it a million times, right? But then that one time you hear it again in a right way, it just resonates deeper, doesn't it?
And when you are ready for that, I truly believe that, you know, it's like those phrases which you know, sound like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know, we will manifest when we are aligned, and da, 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 da. But when you understand, you know it, right? It's not just, oh, it's woo-woo, or it's just this, oh my God, yeah, okay, don't even tell me again, right? It's really when you know that, then you know. And the beautiful thing, I think, what we need to point out as well, from one of those stories, the only thing you can change is you, right? So we try to fix other people, right? That they behave a certain way, make us feel a certain way. But at the end of the day, like the military ladies told you, right? It's like my husband started to act differently, and that's the thing, right? It's like you can change your whole dynamic with your family. I see that through my own clients as well, right? Who are delivering the amazing results, what they are delivering, and hearing from them. It's like the mom fixes her own mindset or removes certain things from her, and then the whole family dynamic starts to shift to the better, and it's a long-term solution what you can, but it's only you
Absolutely.
who can do that, right?
Yeah, 100% that. And, you know, my title is Inner Power Activation Leader because I believe that I go first, right? So then, you know, everything that I'm teaching is a byproduct of me going first. And like I said, everyone in my life has completely transformed as a result of me leading the way. But even with my clients, essentially what I'm doing is creating a leader within them. So then they're able to lead the way of their new journey. And it's this ripple effect that I feel like my real soul purpose here on this earth is to create this conscious awakening of people coming back to themselves, you know, and this amplification of this like rise of this feminine energy. And that's not just like female empowerment, that is just from a sense of feminine energy needs to be what's leading, because that's the energy, that's creation, you know.
Yeah, I totally with you on that, and it doesn't need to be this you know, oh yeah, we are earning as much as you do, or we are doing the same jobs as you do. No, it really needs to come from our the virtues of a feminine energy, right? It needs to come from healing our ancestral wounds and our background, and really making the choices now so our children don't go through those things. So I love it. I even got goosebumps.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it for me as well. And it's creating a new legacy for the women to come. And that's why I like to do the work with the girls, because I think that if I can plant these seeds of intention in them now, like we are just creating, you know, women that are going to change the future. And that's so important to me.
Amen. Goosebumps. Okay. I love that. And you have an amazing freebie for everyone who just wants to get started in that journey, right? What is
Yeah.
your amazing gift?
So
about?
I did an amazing masterclass the other day, and I wanted to share that as my freebie, the replay, because it was so transformative. The feedback was wonderful. And even those little seeds, like I said, of intention have already been planted. So I'm going to give you the link to my masterclass, my free masterclass. You can watch it. And that'll be really, I think, the first step for you to stepping into this new journey and this new version of yourself, this new
Love it.
abundance.
Love it. Love it. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much for being here. Before we go, if you could get people, just remember one thing out of the whole conversation or your magic, what you are delivering, what would be that one thing you want them to remember?
So my saying is that you are the only you there is, and that is your superpower. So when you can embrace and accept all of you, you give other people the permission to do the same.
I love that. I love that. Thank you very much for being here, guys. Reach out. The links are everywhere. Find the freebie. Start your process, and if you feel like it, I guess then you know whom to contact.
Yeah, please do give me a message.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much for being here, and have a lovely, lovely day. Hope to speak to you soon.